Alright, we are back with a new video, and today we'll be once again updating the power rankings for Big Brother Canada 10 following week 5. And there's quite a bit to get into as we recently had a double eviction. Quite a bit has happened. We are now over halfway through the season as well, so I feel like this is a pretty good time to again update these power rankings. So, as usual, I'll be ranking these players based on how likely I think it is that they'll win the game from this point. But let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the list. So starting at the list at number 12, we have the first boot from Thursday night. We have Tynesha. And it's not too surprising to see Tynesha go out here. I mean, while Jessica initially didn't put her up as the target, they eventually were cued into the plan and they just simply went along with it, which isn't ideal as losing Tynesha wasn't great for Jess's game. And while it was a split vote, 5-4, a lot of that was manufactured by Kevin and his group of allies. They really wanted to manufacture this split vote in order to create different sides to go after. Like they even had Josh vote to save Tanisha in order to make it seem like he was in with the other side. So on the whole, Tanisha going home isn't too surprising. And on the whole, I mean, she didn't play too well at the end of the day. I mean, she was in a somewhat decent position early on, with her being aligned with Summer and a lot of that Honey Bunch and Savage 7 group. However, later on, people started to see her as a threat for seemingly being this big player that talked game with everyone else, even though they were very passive in the game. And it's the fact that they were so passive and never talked game with anyone that caused that people to assume that everyone else was being talked to by her about game, prompting her to be a big target. And the fact that she was unable to really address that is a big knock against her. And it's not too surprising to see her go out here, but at the end of the day, it's still disappointing. And so because of that, I have her here at number 12. Now we're moving on to number 11, and we have the other boot from Thursday night and the victim of the safety chain double eviction. We have Jessica. And it's kind of a shame to see Jessica go out here, as I was hoping they would have stuck around a bit longer. However, given the format of the double eviction as well as their position in the game, it's not too surprising that they went out here either, as really neither side of the house really had much incentive to keep them around. I feel like Jess didn't handle their HOH the best. Getting rid of Tanisha didn't really do much to really solidify anything for themselves moving forward. Allow Kevin to really take advantage of other options in the game to basically leave Jessica behind. And coming into that double eviction, I mean, they really had no one willing to save them. And it's not too surprising that they were in the bottom 3 along with Gino and Jacey. And obviously, they lose the comp largely because they accidentally put in a white ball into the hole. Obviously, a big mistake there. And obviously, Jacey-Lynne wins, keeping them on the block, and they are voted out pretty handily, although there were a couple rogue votes here and there. But I don't feel like Jessica played super well. They were pretty bad socially, pretty bad position for a lot of it. And while there was opportunities for them to get off the bottom and into a clear power structure, they weren't able to effectively do so, causing them to be sent out. So it's not too surprising to see them go out here, and they're here at number 11. And with that, we are now moving to the 10 people still in the game. And as usual, I'll be ranking these players based on how likely I think it is that they'll win the game from this point. But at number 10, we have someone who's currently on the block, and I've been pretty low the game up to this point, but here things aren't too good. And here we have Betty. Now, the fact that Betty ended up on the block this week is pretty bizarre considering the circumstances, where a lot of the reason was because Marty accused her and Josh of manipulating him into voting for Gino during the double eviction. And while it doesn't seem like that was truly the case, Marty is really going all in on this narrative to target Betty and Josh. And obviously, that's not great. I mean, Betty's on the block right now, and I feel like there is somewhat of a chance that she could go home. I mean, it's not guaranteed, especially now that Kevin has won the veto and is trying to get her mom backdoored. But it's not looking too great for Betty. And even if she survives this week, I don't really see a path for her to win the game. It seems like no one really respects her. And the main reason Kevin is fighting for her this week is because she would be a number for his alliance. And while that's kind of good in the sense that she is in a power structure or a potential power structure, it doesn't really bode well for her actually winning, even if she gets to the end. So because of that, she's here at number 10. Now we're moving on to number 9, and we have someone kind of similar to Betty, but maybe in a bit more danger even beyond this week. And here we have Jacey-Lynne. And Jacey-Lynne is someone who I have kind of struggled with for a lot of the game. As on one hand, like she definitely has people that are willing to keep her around. She is kind of in the power structure, but even then, the main reason that I don't feel great about her is that throughout the game, we've had talk multiple times of people really targeting her. And I think a lot of that really manifested during the double eviction, where people were not really incentivized to keep around the showmance of her and Gino. And obviously, she was in the bottom three. Now, granted, she did win the competition to save herself, but even then, I feel like if Jessica had won that and left JC and Gina on the block, I think there's a solid chance that JC would have gone home there. Not a great look. And even now, there are definitely people talking about targeting the showmans. And with Gino seemingly being more well positioned there, I mean, that definitely puts JC in a pretty bad spot if they were to end up on the block together. Now, admittedly, think there is an out for her in the sense that there has been talk in recent days of Herman potentially building a final three with her and Gino. However, even then, I feel like if that were to get down, then she probably wouldn't win that anyway. And with Herman being someone that Kevin is currently trying to get on the block, I mean, there's a good chance it won't go through anyway. So either way you look at it, JC is in a great spot at this point. I feel like the double eviction really highlighted how people aren't willing to keep her safe. So because of that, I have her here at number 9. Now we're moving on to number 8. And similar to Jacey-Lynne, we have someone who kind of has gotten some lucky breaks here and there. And even now, I'm not too certain about their position. And here we have Moose. Now, the thing about Moose is he did kind of save himself this week by convincing Marty to not put him up. But now with Kevin winning the veto and potentially using it on someone, I mean, there is a chance Moose could end up on the block, especially if Marty is unwilling to put up Herman in his place. So I think Moose is definitely not entirely out of the woods yet, though if I'm being honest, I don't think he's likely to be targeted this week. Future weeks, however, I still think there's a good shot that he could be targeted, especially if the Kevin side somehow manages to win HOH next week, or even manage to convince Marty to target someone on that other side this week. Then I think Moose could be in a lot of danger there. I feel like if Herman goes out this week or next week, or even if Gino goes out this week or next week, then Moose is definitely one of the bigger targets bought from that other side. However, I feel like even if his side of the house is able to reassert the numbers, I feel like it's pretty unlikely that Moose is actually taken to the end. I feel like he's going to have to win competitions to get there. And I feel like he also got kind of lucky that he won the safety comp during the double eviction that allowed him to be safe. I feel like if it wasn't for that, there definitely is a chance he could have been like on in the bottom three of that. So that's not ideal either. I feel like Moose is someone who probably doesn't have much of a path to the end right now and will probably have to rely on comps at this some point. So because of that, I have him here at number 8. Now we're moving on to number 7, and we have someone who technically should be in a better position right now, but they are currently on the block. And here we have Josh. And again, I feel like the main reason they're this low is because he is on the block currently and has the potential to be targeted by Marty. And similar to Betty, like a lot of that is due to this weird misconception that Marty has about the double eviction, where he is blaming Josh and Betty for getting him to throw his vote onto Gino during the double eviction, which, say what you want, I mean, we'll be talking about Marty soon, but obviously it doesn't bode well for Josh as he's currently on the block. Now, the thing about Josh is he's probably less likely to be targeted over Betty. Like, I feel like even if it stays the same, I feel like Betty probably is more likely to go home over Josh. However, even then, like, again, you're still on the block. It's not ideal. And obviously, Kevin has the veto now and probably could use it to save Josh, probably, as Josh is more essential to Kevin's power structure than Betty is, even though they're both numbers for him. But it's just simply the fact that he's on the block right now. Plus, like he has been kind of on and off in terms of his gameplay. Like that can cause people to not really trust him too much. That leads me to put him here at number 7. Now we're moving on to number 6, and I kind of can't believe I'm putting this person this high, considering, again, I've been critical of this person in the past. But at number 6, we have Marty, the current HOH, and I feel like this HOH has been quite the ride for him, where on one hand, I was kind of glad that he won HOH because it means that he'll be able to get the video from Kevin Martin, who's his favorite player. So I felt like I felt good for him in that regard, but everything he's done since then has been pretty off the rails, where as I alluded to earlier, he did vote for Marty during the double eviction against Jess. And afterwards, he cited this conversation he had with Josh and Betty during that, in which they supposedly pressured him into voting against Gino. And since then, Marty has been really preoccupied with wanting to be the good guy and wanting to be good for Canada and to make it up to Gino for voting against him. And so he's basically acting as if he's acting on Gino's behalf and getting revenge against Josh and Betty for manipulating him. And to me, this is pretty ridiculous. I mean, even if that's the case, I mean, he still should have taken responsibility for the Gino vote. And I don't think it really bodes well on Marty's end. I feel like Marty doesn't really have that strong of a grasp on the house. Like the fact that he believes that Betty is his mastermind is pretty ridiculous. And obviously, it's not great that he's been getting into fights with people. Like he's been accusing Summer of certain stuff that's not particularly great. And I feel like even then, like similar to some of these other people we talked about, I feel like he probably will emerge as a big threat eventually. However, he's probably not likely to be targeted immediately. I feel like Herman, possibly Gino, are more likely to be targeted over him at this point. So I feel like that definitely offers him some insulation. However, it's still not looking great. I mean, I feel like this has not been the best HOH for him. And again, it's not the best look for him either. So because of that, I have him here at number 6. Now moving on to number 5. And this person definitely remains in some danger moving forward. However, I feel like they would probably win if they get to the end. And here we have Herman. And Herman's definitely one of the better players in the house. He's definitely someone who probably could have been targeted in the past, but hasn't really. However, I feel like now they are definitely in a precarious spot where Kevin is pushing really hard to get Marty to backdoor him. Obviously, that's not great. However, I still feel like his side of the house has the numbers for the time being, and I feel like they definitely could get the numbers moving forward depending on how the next HOH works out. And even if Marty is convinced to target Kevin's side of the house, I feel like that's definitely something that will work in Herman's favor. Again, I feel like Herman's still probably the biggest target from that side of the house. However, I feel like he's definitely the most likely to win of that side. So I feel like all those factors combined to make him number 5 on the list. Pretty much the same place as last week. Now we're moving on to number 4, and I didn't exactly want to put this person this high, but given the state of everyone else, I feel like they kind of have to go here. And here we have Haleena. And Haleena is interesting because she's definitely on the Kevin side of the house and pretty well positioned there to where she technically has a final 3 deal with her, Kevin, and kind of Josh. Well, not so much a final 3 deal, more so that they're the core of that side of the house. The issue is that side is currently in a bad spot where Marty's HOH has both nominees being people on that side of the house. And obviously, if that holds and the Herman side is able to take over, that's not particularly great. However, I still feel like Halena's in a good position if the Kevin side is able to win out, able to either convince Marty to put up someone from the other side of the house, or even if they win HOH moving forward. I feel like that definitely puts Haleena in a decent spot. I don't really think too many people are targeting her right now. Mind you, I do worry about her jury chances a bit. However, it's still halfway through the game. Who knows what can happen. But for now, I have her here at number 4. Now I'm moving on to number 3. And again, I'm still not feeling great about this person, especially after what happened in the double eviction. However, I feel like they're less likely to be targeted than certain other people we talked about earlier. But here we have Gino. And again, I feel like Gino, considering everything he's been through, is in a much better position than he probably should, given his level of gameplay and the fact that he's lost certain allies along the way. Obviously, during the double eviction, wasn't in a great spot. Him, JC, and Jess were all in the bottom 3, had to compete in the competition, and he even got a couple votes against him. However, since then, we've seen Marty win HOH and really regret the vote against him, and has really dedicated his HOH, or claims to dedicate his HOH, to getting revenge on the people that convinced him to vote for Gino, which, again, take it or leave it, but obviously that's good for Gino. Now, again, there's still some danger spots for him, where obviously the showmance of him and JC could be targeted moving forward. However, I said before that I think JC's more likely to be targeted over him. I also feel like his side of the house currently has the numbers, and I feel like even then Herman is another target to have ahead of him. I think there are definitely plenty of outs for Gino. However, it's certainly not a guarantee, and I'm not too sure if this placement is good for him. I could see people saying that this is too high for him. However, given the certain circumstances, I feel like he definitely has quite a bit to improve upon, and I feel like he could be in a worse position than he currently is. However, I think that speaks to his social game and the way people perceive him. So because of that, I have him here at number 3. Now we're moving on to number 2, and it's the same top 2 as last week. However, the order did change. So at number 2, we have Summer. And I think the thing about Summer is that obviously she's in a worse spot now than she was last week. For one, she lost Tynesha, her closest ally in the game. And also, there's been talk in recent weeks of her mom potentially targeting her. Like, he's really hasn't liked the idea of her throwing challenges, and it's not great that she's admitting to throwing challenges either, especially to someone like Hermond whose philosophy on the game depends on building this giant power structure that wins all the competitions to solidify their power. And obviously, Summer's philosophy on throwing challenges doesn't really comport to that. So to that end, she definitely is in some more danger than before. However, even then, I feel like there are so many other big threats that would be targeted over her that still leaves her relatively high on the list. Plus, I feel like there are definitely outs for her moving forward. It's just the fact that she lost her closest ally and the fact that Herman doesn't really want to get to the end with her is a big reason that she's dropped a bit. So I have her here at number 2. And now at number 1, the person I think is the most likely to win Big Brother Canada 10 right now is Kevin. And to be honest, I mean, Kevin's not in the best position right now, as his side is technically in the most danger of losing a number this week with Marty as HOH and Josh and Betty on the block currently. However, Kevin won the veto this week. And through that, like, he has the potential to convince Marty to backdoor someone on the other side, namely Herman. And it's unclear right now whether he'll actually get that, like, especially with Marty really being committed to serving Gino and getting revenge on Josh and Betty for this scheme or whatever. But I feel like Kevin definitely still has some time. He has still a lot of potential. I mean, he has a choice of whether to even use the veto, depending on if Marty is willing to do something that will serve him in the game. There's that. Also, he was able to create the sides this past week to evict Tynesha, really establish the sides, and I feel like that was a pretty good display of gameplay right there. The fact that he was able to hold the numbers there despite Herman's efforts to try to make it a more house consensus vote, he was able to create the split vote that way. Thought that was pretty good. And again, he won safety this week at the double eviction as well. And like I said, I mean, he's been really working hard to build this power structure of him, Haleena, and Josh. Losing Jessica wasn't ideal either, but again, I mean, Jessica was kind of a lost cause by the end of it. I feel like Kevin definitely isn't entirely secure right now. However, I feel like he has demonstrated himself to be quite capable at the game, and he still had plenty of decent gameplay moves from this past week, even if not everything went his way. So because of that, I decided to give Kevin the bump this week, and he is here at number 1. And there we go. That will do it for this week's Power Rankings. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And like I said, I will be continuing this content moving forward, updating these Power Rankings. Australian Survivor is wrapping up, so stay tuned for some postseason coverage of that. And of course, Survivor 42 is in full swing right now. I'm obviously covering that as well. Stay tuned for all that. Lots of great stuff coming. But for now, that is the video. See ya.